So we're back with another buying guide video. This time we're going to be going over the Paco Rabanne Invictus lineup, starting with the original and working our way through to the newest release and everything else in between. You know, at this point they've discontinued a few of them, right? But we still have quite a few that are still on the market as well. And so my goal with these videos are to give you some guidance and to break it down and make it easy. Because when you go and you look, there are quite a few to choose from and you might not know what you should get. I'm going to try to lay it out and make it somewhat easy. And I always try to just cover the discontinued ones anyway, just because I think they're just worth mentioning. It's kind of cool to zoom out and take a look at the big picture of all of them. So like I said, a few of these are not going to be available anymore, but a few of these, most of these are still available to purchase. So I'm going to drop links to everything down below. I'm going to make it easy for you. If you want to shop and buy any of these, do so through discounters. You can save yourself a lot of money. And one more thing, this is current as of August 2024. You know, these buying guide videos, they get out of date pretty quickly because they're putting out new releases every year. So as of right now, this is up to date. If you're watching this in a couple years from now, there are probably going to be a few new releases that are missing. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're commenting, asking what about this or that. This is current as of right now. So let's just get things kicked off with the OG Paco Rabanne Invictus. Okay, so this is back when it was Paco Rabanne. I understand now it's Rabanne. We'll talk about that later. So, you know, my bottles, most of them are going to say Paco Rabanne because that's what it was at one point in time. Another thing I'm going to address is some of these bottles will actually say the name of the fragrance up front. Okay, people always speculate, oh, it's fake. Oh, it's not real. It's inauthentic. It's not genuine, whatever they want to call it. That's a tester. Testers, you get the lettering on the front. If you don't like that, don't buy a tester. The OG Invictus, it's where it started. It's a bubblegummy, citrusy marine scent, essentially. So it's kind of aquatic and fresh with a nice C note accord, but then a bit of a citrus kind of bright opening and definitely a bubblegummy smell. You know, when you think of a bubblegum fragrance, this is kind of one of the pioneers of that because when you spray this one, you atomize it, you pick up on that instantly. It actually smells like what people are describing, a bubblegummy sweetness. That's not for everybody. It leads with a very young smell, but it definitely is kind of the trend right now, has been for a while and isn't really going away too much. So even though it has some of that sweetness, you could still spin this one as kind of a summer scent if you wanted to. But really, I think their main goal with this was just to create an all-year-rounder for any time of year, for any guy, just something to smell good, to get good compliments, and just to be wearable. You know, and the original Invictus has come down quite a bit in terms of price on discounters to where this is relatively affordable. It's always been a really good performer, which is another thing that has propelled this one to the success that it has gotten, right? Because when you mix compliment factor with beast mode performance and a relatively affordable price, I mean, you know, under $100 on discounters, you kind of have the recipe for success, and that is exactly what Invictus is. So this stuff has been wildly popular because of those reasons, and because of that, it's gotten quite a bit of hate as well. This one's always been an 8, 9, 10 plus hour performer. So, you know, good performance overall. Maybe you could argue that in the later years, they've cut back on the performance a little. This is a relatively older bottle, so can't speak on that for certainty, but a lot of people will say that. And I'll just go ahead and give it to you straight, just like I do with most of these buying guides. It's kind of a trend. There are so many flankers now. I don't really think you need to bother with the original Invictus anymore. I think most of these flankers are better, and you'd be better off sinking your money into those that we're going to talk about soon. I'm not discrediting the original Invictus, but if you're putting your money somewhere, I think you should hold off and kind of take a look at some of these others first. Not everybody has unlimited funds to just start throwing money away. You know, you might want to pass on this one, but we'll have to see. Okay, now let's get started with one of the first flankers, okay? It is Invictus Aqua 2016. This here is one of their best releases ever, not just in the Invictus line, but also just from Paco Rabanne in general. That's just my opinion. A lot of people will disagree, but really, what this did for the fragrance community and what this did for the line and for the brand in general is absolutely insane. I mean, one of my all-time favorite summer scents. I love Invictus Aqua 2016. So it came out kind of at the end of 2015, I believe, is kind of what the time frame was, right around the same time that Rassasi Hawas came to market. But because Paco Rabanne is a mega designer brand and Rassasi is a clone brand that doesn't have widespread recognition, this one shot to the top of the charts and nobody was really talking about the Rassasi except for a few people in the fragrance community at the time. But I think in technical terms, the Rassasi did come first, but again, they were launched pretty close together. Now, the reason why this one got so popular is because it's a more fresh aquatic version of the regular Invictus, obviously Invictus Aqua, but also the performance. It's not often that you get a summer scent, a predominantly summer-focused fragrance like this with that level of performance. I mean, this was a 12+ hour performer. Absolutely insanely strong. You know, again, the regular Invictus, it was strong, but it's not just all summer freshness. I mean, this still has a bit of a sweetness to it as well, but it's much more of a summer-focused scent, and you just don't get that type of performance out of these that often. It's also very synthetic. That was one of the things that people would push back on when talking negatively about Invictus Aqua 2016. They'd say, oh, it's just a synthetic scent. It is. That's what makes it so good. It's the synthetic nature of this one that gives it that super strong performance that everybody was loving. There was a point in time when this one was pretty affordable on discounters, and I don't remember exactly where it sat at the time. I just can't remember, but I know it was very reasonable considering the performance that you get out of it. Just a strong, powerful, fresh, ambroxan-focused aquatic scent with a bit of a sweet touch, less of the bubblegummy sweetness and more of just like a sweeter ambroxan focus. This stuff is a work of art. It's great. That sounds stupid, but it really is. So many things have gone on to emulate this one, and so the rest is history. Discontinued has been for some time now. Got discontinued after a couple of years. So Invictus Aqua 2016, a true legend that you really can't get anymore. That leads us to Invictus Aqua 2018. So yeah, you know, no surprise, a couple of years later, they wanted to come back and capitalize on the hype again. They made a big mistake discontinuing the 2016 version. You know, a lot of us were optimistic when we saw this one launched or announced. We were thinking, okay, are they going to rebottle that 2016 exact smell and just, you know, rebottle it, give that to us again? They didn't, essentially, in a nutshell. Spoiler alert, that's not what happened. This smells different than Invictus Aqua 2016. So there is a difference between the two, and it's very noticeable. This one, it loses the synthetic smell that 2016 has. For a lot of people, and maybe even Paco Rabanne, maybe they were thinking it's an improvement. And logically, that would make sense a lot of the time. But I'm telling you, if you were around during the heyday of Aqua 2016, it was that synthetic, potent, strong, and stringent smell that made it so successful. This doesn't have that. Smelling that opening, it's very smooth. It's a little bit more citrus focused. It kind of loses some of that sweetness, and it loses the Invictus Aqua charm. I mean, there is a massive difference between the two, and I forgot how different they were because I really haven't worn this one in a long time. This one was never one of my favorites. It was a big letdown for a lot of people. But that being said, they did leave this one around for considerably longer than they did the 2016, which obviously lasted for right about 2 years or maybe less, maybe a year and a half or something like that. This one, they ran this up until, I don't know, probably 21, 22. You could get it relatively easy. And then within the past couple of years, it got a bit harder to pick up. And then now it's gone forever. I really wasn't all that upset when they discontinued Aqua 2018. It had less performance than the 2016. It lost that charm. It was never really a favorite of mine. That being said, it's still not a bad fragrance. It's just they truly made a mistake with it. It's an 8-hour performer, 7 to 8 hours, still respectable, still gets the job done, but just nowhere near what it used to be. Not a ton of use going out and hunting this one down, to be honest with you guys. It's just a bit of a letdown. Okay, that leads us to Invictus Aqua 2024. So I was not expecting this at all, but here we go. We got this year. And again, you see a pretty big resemblance between this and Aqua 2016, right? The bottles are not exactly the same. This one has, I guess, a little bit more of a clear color. This one has almost a little bit of a yellowish tint. I don't know, what would you call that? You can tell there's a difference. Keep in mind, this is 2016, this is 2024. So like legitimately in terms of age, this is much older. The chrome is gonna be a little bit more faded, right? It's an older bottle, okay? I don't polish these or anything, so they're gonna get a little bit worse for wear, but those are the main differences. Of course, on the new 2024, it says Rabanne instead of Paco Rabanne. I guess I'll grab and show you a close-up here. Paco Rabanne on the 2016, Rabanne on the 2024. The final difference as far as presentation is concerned is you have the Paco Rabanne, the Rabanne logo on the atomizer button right there. Okay, those are kind of your main differences. I'm pointing that out because I don't want anybody to get scammed or misled if you're trying to buy one or the other online. So, Invictus Aqua 2024, is 2016 back? Yes, it is. It 100% is. And I'm so glad that it is. Now, this is a travel exclusive. In other words, it's always probably going to be hard to get. So that sucks. But I'm glad that it's out there in the market again. I want people to be able to experience this OG smell if you never got to back from the 2016. It's not 100% spot on. And again, a lot of that could be because we have an old bottle, 2016. Things can change over the years as far as the juice, the concentration, the smell. Things can start to smell different, but they are very close. This one does have more of that synthetic approach. It has all of that salty kind of ambroxan going on with that powerhouse beast mode performance. That's what this is, and I love everything about it. If you can get a bottle of Invictus Aqua 2024 for a price that's not just outrageous like what I paid for mine, then do it. But as of right now, they probably are going to be outrageous. If you sign up to my mailing list and texting list at the link and number down below, I will notify you anytime something rare like this comes into stock or anytime a new release hits discounters or anything. Any fragrance deals that are worth noting, which happens quite often, I'm sending out notifications. So jump on down below and I'll get you taken care of. That could mean you get a chance to buy a bottle of this. So I'll see you over there. Okay, now we're done with Invictus Aqua. I'm not going in order really with these either. I'm just doing it in a way that kind of makes sense. They're grouped together as such, and you'll kind of see what I mean. But up next, we have Invictus Intense. So this one here, it never really got popular. You know, Invictus Aqua, it took away all the spotlight, right? Everybody was talking about Invictus and Invictus Aqua. Invictus Intense, it was released somewhere within that time frame, but it just didn't get hyped. And really, I can kind of see why, but at the same time, I don't want to discredit it and lead people to believe that it's a bad scent because it's really not. I actually like this one a lot. They add a nice whiskey note in there, so it kind of sweetens it up a little bit, gives it a boozy touch. You almost get this kind of leather Tonka combination going on as well, adding to that extra layer of depth behind it. And that's kind of what separates this from the original. It's a little bit more mature, a little bit more refined, and a little bit more interesting. This one is kind of, you know, on and off as far as being able to be purchased right now. Sometimes it'll show up on discounters, and then a lot of the times it'll be sold out. So I think it's officially discontinued and has been for a while, but again, it does show up from time to time. It's an eau de toilette intense concentration. I think they messed up there. I think if they would have made this an eau de parfum or even a parfum, that would have been a really cool move, but parfums weren't all that popular just then at that point when they were putting this out. So, you know, EDT Intense still gets the job done. And it's a good performer as well. It's a 9-hour performer, 9, maybe 10 you could stretch out of this one. So not too bad overall. Okay, now we're jumping over to Invictus Legend. Okay, so this one here is also a tester. So again, keep that in mind. If you don't like that, if you just like the sleek look of that gradient and no text, don't get testers. But for me, I'll always get a tester if a cap is not involved and I'm saving money, right? You know, these don't have caps. If I could save even $2 or $3 or $4 or more, I'm definitely getting a tester. That's been the case with these. So that's kind of the direction that I go. I don't mind that so much. So this one comes in at an eau de parfum concentration. And Invictus Legend, what is it? Well, this one has a really nice sea salt note with a ton of bay leaf and citrus and kind of the general makeup of what the regular Invictus has, except it also loses quite a bit of that bubblegummy sweetness. Now, there still is a little bit of a a sweet touch, kind of a fuzzy touch, and that would be from all the ambroxan that's being used in all of these pretty much. But it doesn't have the bubblegummy style. So that actually makes this one a little bit more appealing because it gets away from that Invictus smell that everybody knows about and a lot of people don't like. So even though this is a flanker of that, it is different. It's actually just a little bit more kind of slightly green smelling. Like you get a bit of a green note and maybe a tiny bit of an earthiness along with all that salt and the C notes and the bay leaf as well, and some citrus. That's kind of what separates it. So I wouldn't necessarily call it really more mature than the original Invictus, kind of like Invictus Intense is, but it is more mature than Invictus, but it still kind of has that modern style, but it is going to be fresher than something like Invictus Intense. And maybe the way I'm describing it would lead you to believe that it's somewhat close to the Invictus Aqua series, but it really isn't either. It's just kind of a fresher, greener, saltier take on Invictus, minus the bubblegummy sweetness. Like I said, eau de parfum concentration, so I was happy to see that. At least they weren't going with an EDT Intense or something like they've done. And another good performer, a 9-10 hour performer. Most of these Invictus fragrances, they're just strong. They're synthetic bombs that are potent, and that's kind of what they're going for. So for the most part, you really don't have to worry about performance too much, unless you're someone who just never gets good performance in general. Usually these should work on you pretty good. And if not, maybe your expectations are too high. Not everything lasts for 14, 16 hours like we might want. Okay, now we're gonna go over to the new Rabanne Invictus Parfum. First things first, the presentation is awesome. Nice angular bottle, which just feels cool in the hand. It kind of doesn't feel like it's gonna slip out of your hand like some of the Invictus bottles do. They're pretty slick and they just, I don't know, kind of rounded. This one, it's cool, it looks cool. I love the gold accenting on the top. And remember, this is new as of this year. So we have Rabanne instead of Paco Rabanne, and we have the logo on the button up top. So what's the deal with this one here? We've got marine notes and lavender, but you also get soap, which is weird, musk, cashmere, sandalwood, and there's a few others as well. I really had no idea what to expect going into Invictus Parfum. I was expecting something sweeter, and then I saw the note breakdown, and then I wasn't expecting something sweeter anymore. When I smell this one, it's kind of like the makeup of Invictus Legend overall. So kind of minus the bubblegummy sweetness, but a little bit more rich and just a little bit more of a woody potency behind it compared to Invictus Legend. This one is very aromatic focused as well, and just has a nice woodiness to kind of back it up. This isn't one of my all-time favorite Invictus fragrances, but it is, to me, at least one of the better ones, okay? I would take this over Invictus Legend. I would take this over Invictus Aqua 2018, and maybe another one that we'll talk about next. So not one of my all-time favorites, but also not bad either. I do like it. I think it's a really nice one. It kind of has just a little bit of a smooth creaminess off the opening that is very reminiscent of a lot of newer parfum and elixir fragrances, not just from Paco Rabanne, but from other brands in general. A very specific style of a creamy sweetness, not bubblegummy, that's very common these days, which that kind of connects it to a lot of other newer releases. Overall, I would say it's a more refined version of Invictus Legend, and it would be the one to get between those two. Another good performer as well. It's a 9-10 hour performer coming in at a parfum. Not a bad release. Okay, next up we have Invictus Platinum. This is kind of another one that is a little bit of a lost cause. I just don't see it all that often. I mean, when do you really hear about Invictus Platinum? I almost said Legend. Invictus Platinum, not all that often. I actually forgot when this one was released. It's a 2022 release, so relatively new still, but just not heard about. This one has notes of like absinthe, grapefruit, mint, lavender, cypress, and patchouli. A very aromatic, spicy, green, and woody take on the Invictus DNA. This gets pretty far away from OG Invictus and a lot of the other flankers. You do get a little bit of a green mintiness off the top, but it's not a huge player. You don't get as much of it as I would like. Very aromatic and a kind of woody focus, especially from that cypress and patchouli and things like that. They come through pretty strong. This has never been a favorite of mine, really. It's very much a pass for me, you know. It's just something that I don't really see myself wearing. I never do wear it. I never have the feeling to seek it out. And I think of all of the other offerings, and we're not even done yet, I think this is just kind of towards the bottom, you know. Again, people don't have unlimited funds. This might be one I would pass on, or at least sample first. And if you fall in love with it, that's amazing. But I would say maybe kind of funnel your money into some of the others. At the end of the video, I'm going to do a final recap, and I'll go through which ones I think are really worth getting, just to summarize things. And we are almost done though. Up next we have Invictus Victory. So this is the original giant 200 ml bottle, which looks pretty stupid, but it just ended up being a good deal at the time. Sometimes when you buy these from overseas, before they hit, you know, retailers here in the US, the prices are just so close as far as going from like a 100 to a 200, or is this a 150? I can't remember how they did it. Oh, it's a 200, yeah. So I mean, I remember it being not a whole lot of a difference. This is an eau de parfum extreme concentration, very powdery, very dusty. A powdery tonka bean, vanilla, and amber scent is essentially what this is. And I really like it. I love that opening. It smells amazing. Almost has a little bit of like a cola kind of fizziness, kind of like how a Paco Rabanne Pure XS opens up. That one has like a sugar and liquor note and leather and a bunch of sweetness and a vanilla benzoin going on. And I'm not saying it smells like that, but that has this kind of cola fizzy opening, almost a little bit bubbly, and so does this. Oh, it smells amazing. Killer opening on this stuff. And it dries down to a really nice vanilla tonka bean scent. This is one that is kind of easy to forget about as well, just because of kind of the vast, you know, expanse of the line, and mostly the 1 millions and stuff that are very popular. And even I forgot how good this one was until I started kind of preparing for this video. But gosh, I love this stuff. It's a really good release. It's another good performer. It's an 8+ hour performing scent, really good for fall and winter time, and very different than the rest of the lineup. Something that's actually kind of a unique offering. Last up for this video, we have Paco Rabanne Invictus Victory Elixir. So yeah, getting on to the Elixir train. This was last year's release, and then obviously Invictus Parfum was this year's release. So the Victory line is kind of separate to that of the Invictus line, you know, and I'm sure they're going to keep going with the Victories, and I'm sure they're going to keep going with the Invictus fragrances as well. This one follows a similar blueprint, no surprise, to Victory, okay? But being that this is an elixir, it's going to be a bit heavier. So you're getting the additional notes of incense and patchouli, along with the vanilla, tonka, cardamom, and kind of pepper. So a little bit of a smoky touch, very vanilla heavy still, kind of ambery and spicy and warm and rich. Another fantastic smelling release. So this is an Elixir Parfum Intense is what they're classifying it as. So I'm thinking probably not a full-fledged parfum. Regardless, it still is a very heavy and rich scent as far as how it's delivered. It's a really good 9-10 hour performer and beyond. There's a lot to like about this one. You know, it's right there with Victory. As far as which one I like better, it's tough, and it depends on the day. Some days it's this. Some days I revisit the opening of the regular Victory, and I like that better. They're both really good, and both of them separate themselves quite a bit from the original. And just like that, we tore through the entire Invictus lineup. The only one I didn't cover was like Invictus Onyx, which is just the same as Invictus but rebottled, and I think that was it. But these are all of the Invictus fragrances. Some you can still get, others not so much, but most of these are still relatively easy to get. Now, which ones do I think you should buy? Really, I think it comes down to if you can get a bottle of Aqua 2024 for a fair price, get it, okay? Next up, I would say the new Parfum is worthwhile. I think this is a pretty good release. If you can get it below retail, it's worth picking up. Also, I would say that both of the Victories are amazing, and I think these are worth checking out at some point in time as well. Invictus Legend, Invictus Intense, Invictus Platinum, Invictus Aqua 2018, the regular Invictus. I think those are at the bottom of the list. If you wanted to complete your collection and buy those at some point, maybe so, but the ones I just listed off are what I think you should focus on first. Again, I will link everything down below so you can buy these as well, except for the really hard to find ones. But again, Aqua 24, when that one comes onto discounters at some point, which it will, I will send out an email and a text. Jump on there. If you want to win 24 fragrances, a big old bundle, hit the first link down below and get entered there. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.